Alright, let's see. What should be my recap voice this time? Well, maybe since a bunch of, the dragons have Celtic names and whatnot, why don't we try my bad Irish accent? And don't worry, I'm allowed to do this. I'm Irish. Previously on Fourth Wing, Violet visited her general mother to exposit at one another for a while and then leave. Her sister repacked for her, and she headed to the Parapet Challenge with her special girl hair. She made some new friends and snagged herself an unhinged bully. Her hot enemy Xaden was there. He was really hot and that's all. She crossed the parapet, got the better of her bully, and now is ready for dragon school. Alright, we're back. I have put the ferrets away. This is still the same day as previous chapter, but I had some thoughts while I was putting the ferrets away, so let's see if I can remember all of them. The first one is regarding the unhinged bully. We have really no context on whether this is just normal behavior, but it seems like it is, because the main character never questions why this boy is so determined to end her life. She just acknowledges that he is, accepts that he is, and determines to defend herself. She never goes, what has he got against me? Why does he hate me so much? She just goes, yep, this is a fact of my life. Now, I'm certain we will find out as the story goes on. I imagine, I guess I'm not certain of anything. I imagine that at some point there will be a scene where he's like, your people did such and such to me and therefore I hate you, or your mother did such and such to me and therefore I hate you.
Get used to disappointment. Her
acceptance of this just makes me wonder, because she's from the scholar sector. She was training to be a scholar. So that means one of two things. The first being that she just completely accepts that someone wants to kill her now that she's a dragon rider. But the one that I find way more humorous and would like to believe is that in the scholar sector, it's just as brutal, and everybody's trying to kill everybody there, too. The other thing is thinking about their society and, why I already don't like it and don't like the world building, and thinking about the idea of weeding out the weak and using martial prowess to determine who is the best dragon rider, or at least who can murder whom to determine who's the best dragon rider. And there's this whole idea that I don't like in a lot of fantasy books of inborn exceptionalism that just really bothers me, and I push against it in a lot of my own fiction. This idea that you are just born special and with a little bit of work you can be better than everyone else, versus everybody having the opportunity to gain skills and become better through those skills. It is like, if you're not born special, you will never be able to succeed past a certain point. But anyway, I hate the inborn exceptionalism idea, and even though we have a character who is disabled, I would not be surprised if we find out later that she still has some type of inborn exceptionalism, something about her that makes her more special than everybody else, even with her disability. Something that she has had no control over, something that her ambitions, her willpower, her ability to learn and grow will have had nothing to do with.
Clever.
Let's get back to this book and see if I can get a few more chapters done today, because it's a long, long book. You know, I always feel bad when my books turn out kind of long, because I'm like, oh, I don't want to make too much work for my readers, they're only going to want to read so much. And then there's these things come out traditionally published, and I'm like, you know what? I really maybe don't need to be so careful. Anyway, what's our special quote for chapter 3? Blue dragons descended from the extraordinary Gormfeli... I'm not even going to try to say it. Known for their formidable size, they are the most ruthless, especially in the case of the rare blue daggertail, whose knife-like spike at the tip of their tail can disembowel an enemy with one flick. What do you want to bet that our main character gets one of them special dragons? Because it can just sense that she has a better soul than everybody else. One of the other cadets says, I think you made an enemy there, referring to the bully, and I'm like, she didn't have to do anything to make that bully. He came pre-packaged and ready to kill her, no questions asked. Oh my god, they are Dauntless. Holy shit, they're just Dauntless with dragons. The main character has met back up with Rhiannon, the girl that she was befriending on the other side, and Rhiannon says, I swear I just saw a second year with pink streaks in her hair, and one guy has dragon scales tattooed on his entire bicep.
Some people think Dauntless are crazy, which they kind of are.
This is just Divergent all Dauntless edition, isn't it? By the way, I did read all of those books in the desperate hope that they would get better. It was a long time ago, so I do have reviews of it, but they are much older. Like much, much older, like 2 cameras ago older. So you can go check them out, but your results may vary as far as quality goes. Now that the adrenaline has worn off from her wall walking escapades, she is now very sore because, as we established, she has some kind of joint issue and it's caught up with her. I'm waiting to see if this continues to be a thing through all of the book. I've seen it happen a lot of times where a character has a disability, but it only ever comes up in times when it will not inconvenience them. So let's see if this one actually, because I don't know if you know this, but disabilities can be really inconvenient sometimes. So let's see if this character actually has that happen. Oh, we have the other leg of the love triangle, which is the sweet boy coming in now. And of course we get a lengthy description of what Dane looks like because we have to know how hot he is. And if you guess that he is basically hot in the same way as the other guy is hot, except for with brown hair instead of black hair, you're correct, because we don't do various body types for guys in these kind of books. Why would we? Luckily, he came along at exactly the right time to help her through this health crisis that she's having, so he can guide her away and sit her down and comfort her, and nobody has to see her being weak. Because by the laws of their world, shouldn't somebody just be like, oh, never mind, she's weak, and just shove her off the parapet? So in this book, instead of having the classic mean girl showing her ugly head right away at least, we had the super unhinged bully right away to kind of make up for it. And instead we have what I call the built-in best friend trope, where the character goes somewhere and immediately gains herself a best friend in another girl who is just immediately very loyal. She velcros herself to the main character. No questions asked, and that is Rhiannon, and Rhiannon is already on board to be totally down with Violet's disability, even though we've already established what a brutal world this is. Luckily for Violet, Rhiannon was exactly the right person that she needed to meet, who would just be very understanding and totally want to be her friend no matter what.
Did we just become best friends? Yup!
We get a brief rundown of her and Dane's relationship previous to this, how close they were, just a series of Dane was there for me at all of these times. Kind of necessary since we don't have time at the beginning of this book to set him up as a previous best friend character. We keep hearing about the threshing, which is going to be a second test, I'm sure, to make sure that they're good enough dragon people. But also, her friend is the squad leader, which is apparently a really high up position, so that he shouldn't even have as a second year. So he's obviously also very special. Ooh, we might find out finally a little bit of details about why her mother sent her here, because her friend is the first person to actually point out, this is stupid, why are you here? You're supposed to be a scribe. She didn't think about it one single thought about why her mother was putting her into this situation until now the friend is asking. So let's find out. Okay, great, love this. This is the explanation we get. Every Sorengale is a writer, don't you know? But her mother was perfectly happy up until now to have her in the scribe quadrant, presumably, or she wouldn't have spent so much time training to be there. Probably it has to do something with her father's death, and then her mother lost it and decided that everybody needed to be a dragon rider, but I really wish that the main character would at least think about it.
Get used to disappointment.
Got some more ellipses that we don't need. Just throw those in. Personally, I try not to use ellipses. Try not to. Sometimes they do sneak in, but I mostly try to use them in dialogue to get across the pacing of the dialogue, and even then very sparingly. Personally, that's where I go with it, because a lot of times ellipses are not necessary, and I know many authors just love them, and you can pry ellipses out of their cold dead hands, but I am not one of those people. Oh, the riders all wear black, because again, they're Dauntless. You think black would make you stand out more in the sky, but then again, if you're riding a dragon, maybe that doesn't matter. We are finding out a little bit more about her disability, and it does sound very similar to a disability that I have some experience with because my daughter and also my husband's best friend have this disability. I'm going to put it on the screen because I always forget what it is, but it involves loose and weak ligaments, and that's kind of what she's talking about with her knee. She banged it on the wall and it's all swollen now, where somebody else would have just gotten like a bruise.
So upon further research, it seems that yes, this is the same illness that my daughter and my husband's best friend both have. It's EDS. The author apparently also has this. And I have now, having read the book, can tell you that it is probably not the best portrayal of EDS, mostly because it's not the best portrayal of any disability. The thing about EDS is your mileage will vary and your symptom severity will vary from person to person. So you can't just say hard and fast, these are the symptoms that you have. Like, there is the ligament weakness, but my husband's best friend has issues where, like, there is issues with internal organs not being correct, essentially, because of this illness. She has a lot of issues with flare-ups that can be devastating and completely debilitating, and she can't even get out of bed. So far, my daughter also has flare-ups that are pretty severe but aren't as long and severe. Sometimes my daughter might decide to use a cane. A lot of times she doesn't. It just varies a lot day to day, and both of those people have to spend a lot of time thinking around their illness that Violet kind of does at the beginning of the book, but I'm going to spoil it for you. She really stops doing that as the book continues, and we'll go into that more. The book has covered its own ass because it never says that she has EDS. What she has is fantasy illness, number 5, caused by her mother having a fever when she was pregnant with Violet, which also made Violet have silver hair. So the author has wisely covered her butt, where even though Violet's illness is based on EDS, it is not EDS. So any inaccuracies there can be covered up by going, this is just fantasy illness number 5. What are you talking about? This isn't a real disability.
And to be clear, if you do have a disability and you do feel represented by this book and you thought it was done well, I'm not trying to take that away from you. I'm saying that we probably still should keep trying to hold books to a higher standard, and this still feels like the bare basics of disability representation, especially as the book goes on. Like, it's a lot more present at the beginning, but especially as the book goes on, for reasons we'll talk about, it gets a lot more toxic feeling. So if you feel represented by this, I'm glad you do, but also I feel like you deserve better.
But she is an expert at, like, making herself knee braces and stuff, so she has one in her pack and she puts it all together, and now her knee is good, I guess, good enough. They're flirting this whole time, by the way. I don't care. She's not going to end up with him. He's the best friend one. And we all know that she's going to end up with the angry dark one. We know. Dane is the only person with any common sense because he's like, okay, cool, now that we've bandaged you up, I'm taking you back to the scribe quadrant. But she's like, no, Mother will never stand for it. We're trying to do a thing because she's insulted and she's like, what do you think? I'm less than the others? What does that mean to you? Even though, like, 2 chapters ago, she was thinking about how certainly she was going to die and she definitely can't handle this. Now she's insulted. We're supposed to be upset right along with her that Dane is suggesting that she can't handle it, but she can't handle it from everything that we've been told so far. But we're supposed to be like, how dare he say that to her? It'd be like insisting that my daughter, with her with medical issues that she has, suddenly go and become an Olympic runner right now. Not with years of practice. Right now. Go out, if you're watching this, daughter of mine, go out and become an Olympic runner right now. I would be stupid if I allowed you to be like, hey mom, I'm going to go become an Olympic runner. I'm entering the Olympics. Here I go right now. I would be stupid if I was like, yep, totally on board with that, 100%, bye honey. No, Dane is right. She can't handle this. From everything that we have heard so far, she can't handle this. And she has wanted to go back to the scribe quadrant this whole time. But now all of a sudden she's insulted because they suggest that she can't handle a thing that she can't handle. But she is now insulted, and I'm running out of memory cards, so I need to stop this rant and empty the memory card. I was hoping I would get through the chapter, but it's a long chapter, so I'll be back.
How do you like the ride so far?
I will rid the world of every last one of you.
I am the last one.
Alright, we're back. Memory card emptied. Disembodied unicorn head at my feet where the ferrets left it. Back to reading this book. I did not expect the world building to be this bad, like, so early on, yet here we are. So she's like, I can't go back because my mother would come drag me right back out of there, she already told me. And the obvious question for Dane to ask would be why? Why is your mother so determined that you should die here? But he doesn't ask that, he just accepts it as a fact. And that's all it takes. She's like, my mother won't let me leave, she'll drag me back. And he's like, oh, alright, well, guess we're going forward with the dragon plan. So she said that the courtyard that they're going into is shaped like a teardrop, like an angular teardrop. So I was like, oh cool, I know there's a map of the school at the beginning of the book, so I went to look for it. Is that, let me just see if we can share this. Look at the, I don't want to lose my place. Hang on, put a bookmark. All right, this is the only thing that I could think would be what she's describing. Does that look like a teardrop to you? Because that doesn't look like a teardrop to me. Like, no. Maybe like there's some shadowing going on here that makes it look a little bit more teardrop shaped, but like not actually teardrop shaped. So she reunites with Rhiannon, who has brought along another friend, Tara, which maybe we won't get girl hate in this book, so that's nice at least. Just put it on the bingo card and we won't get it in this book. But they're all talking about how they've loved dragons since they were little girls, which is obviously a nod to all of us dragon girlies who are reading this book. But it's a very different thing when the creature you love is a real creature who's also like super, super deadly. We get more descriptions of Xaden. He's so tall that he stands out in a crowd, but also the other riders like avoid him. She says he's a shark and they're all fish, giving him a wide berth. We get it. He's the bad boy. I want to know how you just walk with lethal grace. What makes the grace of how he's walking lethal? Like, I get lethal grace if you're referring to somebody being very graceful in battle because they're actually being lethal. But he's just walking. By the way, 3 hours passed, she meets up with these girls, and then 3 hours go by in which they apparently have no conversations about anything, because we don't even get a rundown of like what they chatted about. They just wait for 3 hours. And now Commandant is here. We get a weird little tidbit from Tara, who, apropos of absolutely nothing, decides to drop some information about this particular Commandant and how he is trying to get the main character's mother's job. Apparently, the general, like the commanding general, the biggest general over everyone, he has a dragon power that allows him to see the outcome of battles before they happen. So, like, maybe it legitimately doesn't matter how many dragon riders kill each other before they become dragon riders because he can see the outcome of battles before they happen. Like, why would you ever even participate in a battle you know you're going to lose? Although apparently battles qualifies as anything in his life, because apparently you can't be assassinated if you know it's coming. So I guess assassination attempts count as battles. Once again, she mentions how just everybody wants to be a dragon rider. Just it's the best job in the world. Everybody wants to do it. And I'm like, why though? Here's an example of slightly better world building, slightly better info dumping, for lack of a better term. Like a bunch of people step forward and our main character identifies them for Rhiannon because Rhiannon doesn't have like the main character's military experience. That's a better way to get this information across. Having your main character who knows this explain to another character who doesn't know this. It could also be reversed, having a character who knows it explain to your main character who doesn't know it. The one thing you don't want to do is to have two characters who both know it explaining it to each other. Then you have what we in the biz call an as you know conversation, and we want to try to avoid those if we can. So now they're being divided into their Hogwarts houses, I mean the 4 different squadrons they can be in. The bully Jack goes to the flame section of the first wing, whatever the fuck that means. Gryffindor, I'm assuming. All right, and both Rhiannon and Violet are called into the second squad flame section. There's a lot of information being thrown at me about various like positions and squadrons and sections of squadrons and people who are in charge of those sections. And I'm wondering how important any of this is because it's a lot to remember.
Chairs!
Oh, she sees the girl with a half-shaved head and pink hair. She catches Xaden's eye, and he's of course glaring at her because he has nothing better to do. We have a book title drop finally. Xaden said something to somebody, and now her squad is going to his wing, the fourth wing. Ooh. Good to know that she got into the fourth wing of the title of this book because the hot guy was grumpy with her or something. Yeah, he just wanted her in his chain of command so he can like sexily punish her for stuff. I love that. That's like the whole title of the book, and it's because of the hot guy just randomly on a whim moves her to a different squad. So I liked the description she had early on of her heart galloping. I think it's a good description of something that can feel like your heart is doing. But she uses it a lot. This author uses it a lot. What's the author's name? Rebecca. Watch out for describing things the same way too many times. Once or twice, it sounds clever, but like every other time, it's too much. Apparently, squad mates aren't allowed to kill you. It's just very confusing. Because our main character is just morally so much better than everyone here, while everyone else is cheering, she refuses to because people died today. And she will not cheer about that. She's better than everyone, okay? But we have some dragons finally, yay! I thought it would be even longer before we got to see dragons, but now we get to see some dragons. And we get to see how this book does with the dragons, because as I have discussed in other books, deciding about describing creatures that are fairly commonly known by readers, how much you want to describe, how much you don't want to describe, because the reader is fairly familiar with the idea of dragons, we'll see how much this author does. I feel like this should be lethal. So we're describing the dragons a bit. Like we're not describing a dragon top to bottom. And it's definitely seemingly understood like the rough shape of the dragon and everything. So we're just describing like the wings, the tail, but it says the wings have like this talon on them. And then it says, their tails are just as fatal. And I get it. But I think lethal would actually be a better word here. Fatal isn't the worst word, it just seems a little bit odd in this place. And you can disagree with me. That's just something like, if I was developmentally editing this book, I would leave a note asking the author, hey, I feel like maybe lethal might be a better word here. Do you want to change it? And then the author gets to decide whether they want to change it or not. So they have super thick walls for the dragons to perch on, but apparently the dragons still kind of like destroy the walls every time they perch on them, and they have to just keep repairing them. And it seems to me that you might find some other methods for making the dragon perches than just letting them destroy the walls every time. The dragons are knocking like hunks of wall the size of my torso down into the courtyard. All the dragons are different colors, so it seems like we're going to go with that fairly simple and straightforward. The dragons have different colors, and that's how you can tell what breed they are.
It's kind of worse than that. The dragons are basically NFTs. They have different colors, different sizes, and different tail types. Like their tails are all just based on weapons. So they'd be like a green sword tail. And so that's a green dragon with a tail spike that's shaped like a sword. A black morning star tail. Same thing. Now the dragon is black, but it has a morning star shape on the end of its tail. So it's just like kind of copy-pasty with these dragons. We are not doing anything else to differentiate like types and breeds. They're just different colors, different sizes, and have different tails. Otherwise, apparently they are identical.
We are told that they're massive, but I still don't have a hugely good idea of how big these dragons are. Big enough for a human to ride, certainly, but like how big is that? What does massive actually mean? So apparently part of the symbiotic relationship that dragons and humans have, when a human and a dragon bond, it allows the dragon to also do a certain type of magic they can't do on their own to protect the Vale, which is where the dragons live, from merciless griffins. I'm trying to imagine any griffin I've ever seen in fiction that could even come close to having a chance of tackling a dragon. But maybe we're going to do something cool and different with griffins in this book.
Get used to disappointment.
We're also reminded that when dragons and riders bond, if the rider dies, the dragon doesn't really care. But if the dragon dies, the rider also dies or lives a half-life of some kind. We'll probably find out more about that. We are getting a little bit more detail, helpfully, about how big the dragons are. We find out their teeth are as big as the main character. Now, she's small for a human. I'm going to say she's probably about my size, about 5'3". That's about average size for a woman right now, but we'll say she's that because this is a fantasy book and everybody's freaking tall. So 5'3" teeth. One cadet tries to run and a dragon kills him with fire, but I'm really wondering how there's enough space in this courtyard for the dragon not to roast some other people in the process. And the dragons are intimidating some more, and that's the end of the chapter. Alright, well, might try to at least get through chapter 4 today before I take a break or possibly just stop reading for the day, because this is a lot. And it's worse than I thought it was. I thought this was actually going to be like maybe better. And yes, technically, it is better than Zodiac Academy, for example, but I've also read some fantasy books that I've really enjoyed since then, so I have those to compare this to, and this is not impressing me. Even as like cheesy schlock, it's not really impressing me yet. I mean, I'm only on chapter 4, so give it some time, obviously, Julian, give it some time. But it's not doing anything special yet. It's just another bog standard YA fantasy book. And I guess if you're in the mood for one of those, cool. But it just, again, it makes me question what gets popular. But we're going to keep reading it, that's for sure. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe it will get better. Anyway, I'll see you for chapter 4. Alright, I'm back. And Jojo has decided to join us. We'll see how long she sticks around. Alright, chapter 4. What is our quote for chapter 4? The sparring ring is where riders are made or broken. Sparring makes you a better dragon rider. Don't ask questions. After all, no respectable dragon would choose a rider who cannot defend themselves from other humans, I guess? And no respectable cadet would allow such a threat to the wing to continue training. Sometimes they have very strict regulations here, and sometimes they don't give a fuck. Mostly the regulations are involved in when you can kill people. Because she's like, everybody's got uniforms, but like my daggers are not strictly regulation, but that's okay because everybody modifies their uniform, and I'm like, okay, good. Glad to know that we don't really care about uniforms, but there are a lot of rules for when you're allowed to kill each other. She wore her armor all night, like Mira suggested, presumably to protect herself from being killed, but they aren't allowed to kill each other in their sleep. In case the bully was like waiting next to her bed with a knife, and as soon as she opened her eyes, you could be like, stab, stab, stab! Even though she's sleeping in apparently a barracks-type situation with a bunch of other people, she still managed to sneakily put her knee brace on this morning. So we'll see how long she gets away with, like, conveniently just nobody noticing that she has a disability. Today is their first day of sparring. We want to get straight into that. We want to get straight into this martial prowess and just endanger our main character as much as possible. If we're not endangering our main character's life in every chapter, what even is the point? Why would we even read books if the main character's not in life or death danger in every chapter? Also, we find out that there's this thing called the Gauntlet, because of course there fucking is, which is, of course, can you guess? An obstacle course. You're right. We once again mentioned the pink-haired girl. Like, have we got a little bit of a crush? Have we got some girl love instead of girl hate in this book? I'm on board. We keep mentioning this badass pink-haired girl. So, well, like, why would we keep mentioning her? This is my ship, by the way, in case you're wondering. And also, already potential cosplay? I don't know. There's a lot of book left. Who will I cosplay at the end? Interesting that if they fail to be claimed by a dragon, they just get to try again. In a world so brutal, I was assuming that everybody who didn't get claimed by a dragon just got killed or eaten by the dragons. But no, they get to try over. So, like, there's this other character, Sawyer, who I don't think matters, who was not chosen last year, so he gets to try again this year. How many tries do you get before they just decide that you're not gonna work out and kill you or something? We got the immediate best friend here with the best friend powers, because as they're all heading to class, Violet, our main character, sees her not boyfriend Dane and her buddy Rhiannon, her automatic best friend, is like, go talk to your boy. I'll grab your stuff. It's under your bunk, which is right next to mine. It's fine. I don't mind at all. By the way, I've been let down by too many books that allow girls to be friends for me to trust this Rhiannon thing. I'm still going, yeah, she's gonna turn out to, like, betray the main character later. My lungs pull in a sharp breath. Well, that's not technically incorrect. I would just say I pull in a sharp breath, because the fact that you're using your lungs to do that is pretty well implied. So Dane is just making sure that nobody tried to hassle her last night. And once again, I bring up 2 rules that you've told us that would have made it really difficult for somebody to do that. The first one being that you're not allowed to harm each other while you're asleep, and the second one being that you're not allowed to kill your own teammates, your squad mates. So somebody from a different squad would have had to sneak in there and then wait for you to wake up to harm only you. So I really don't feel like there's actually that much danger. I think we're going to decide that Dane is undesirable because he's too, like, persnickety and, like, in her business. Because he's, like, very caring, but also he's just being very bossy as well. And he's decided that she should cut her hair, even though she's just, keeping it up in a bun, her special girl hair. So I think eventually Dane being so, like, caring is going to tip over the edge into him just being, like, bossy and demanding. Also, he's like, well, what if somebody grabs your hair in the sparring ring? If you read the much better book series, which is the Becca Cooper series by Tamara Pierce, the main character has long hair in that, but she keeps spikes in her braids, so when somebody grabs her hair, they get a handful of spikes. She does ask him why their squads were shifted around, and now they're in 4th Wing, and of course, he admits that Xaden Ryerson wants you dead. It's common knowledge among the leadership. Yeah, okay, you form a queue, because there's already that other guy, Jack, who wants her dead for no goddamn reason. But wouldn't moving her into his squadron actually make it harder for him to kill her? Because yes, they're in closer proximity, but aren't there rules against him killing her because now she's... Or, like, is it just, like, your direct company? So, like, the people that she shares a barracks with, but no one else. Everyone else could still kill her. I don't understand the rules, and I shouldn't look for logic in them because there isn't any.
Is it supposed to be stupid?
It's not stupid. It's advanced.
He's like, make sure nobody kills you in your class today. And she says, academics are the one place I don't have to worry, meaning worry about being killed, but also when you're asleep and also when you're with your squad because they won't kill you or aren't allowed to kill you. So, like, how concerned should we actually be for your safety? There are a lot of times and places where people are supposed to be not killing you. Of course, Dane is certain that Xaden is going to kill her just in the middle of class, just stab her, because he's fucking ruthless. I haven't seen Xaden do anything except glare. I have seen that other bully, Jack, throw someone off of a wall. So I am honestly way more concerned about that other guy. Remember the blue dagger tail dragon we learned about? That's what kind of dragon Xaden has. Dane is explaining a little bit about the magic powers that his dragon gives him. And he says, I can do the typical stuff like open doors, crank up my speed, and power ink pens instead of using those inconvenient quills. What the fuck does crank up my speed and power ink pens mean? Are you like Sonic the Hedgehog and your dragon magically makes it so your pens don't need ink? What the fuck are these powers? Crank up my speed. Okay.
Also, to be clear, no one ever uses the speed powers. The speed boost, whatever that is, 0 people use it. It never comes up again. What does it mean?
People can also get elemental magic called signet powers from their dragon. Like, the main character's mother can wield the power of storms, and of course there's that general who can see the outcome of battles. battles which include assassination attempts. And apparently Dane can read a person's recent memories. Like, I guess it feels like Lightlark all over again. People can just have whatever magical powers the author feels like would be cool at any given time. They don't have to make sense. They don't have to follow any kind of pattern. They're just like, oh yeah, I have the power to read people's recent memories. Which begs the question, hey Dane, why didn't you just like touch her and find out that nothing happened to her last night? Because her recent memories would be that she had a night of undisturbed sleep in the barracks. Oh, he has to put his hands on someone's temples to read their recent memories. That's a little inconvenient. And of course we just have recent memories, no indication of how recent that has to be. Is it a few minutes or is it like days? Who cares? That won't come up until we need him to conveniently read somebody's mind later, and then it will just be however long he needs to be able to read their mind for the plot. Oh my god, sometimes I do feel like I'm reading Zodiac Academy all over again. Xaden Ryerson, we have to get his full name, can't just call him Xaden, is watching me with narrowed eyes, the sleeves of his uniform rolled up his massive arms that remained folded across his chest. We gotta know that those muscles are poppin'. Once again, we're talking like modern teenagers. I already knew your parents are tight, Xaden calls out. Now, don't get me wrong, your fantasy book doesn't have to have like over-the-top, overblown sounding dialogue. I've read a couple of books like that and I didn't really like them. But also just having them sound like how modern teenagers speak just also isn't my kind of thing. Why not, your parents were close? Alright, so the chapter ends with Xaden approaching her and Dane telling our main character to run, and she does. That apparently we're meant to believe that Xaden was going to kill her right there in the Great Hall in front of everybody. And then the next chapter, it looks like we'll be getting to battle class, and I suspect maybe also we'll get some sparring in. I can't imagine the entire chapter is going to be battle class. But I need a break, so I will probably go and work on some of my own writing because, again, when I read certain books, they make me want to write my own, and this one is one of those that makes me want to just, like, go write something better, at least to me, better. You know, some books inspire you because they're great, and some books inspire you because they are mediocre, and I'm sure you can guess which one this one is.
Hey viewers, are you enjoying what you see? Did you know that most of us YouTube creators don't make a whole lot of money off of YouTube? Some of us don't really even make any. It's pennies, really. So if you'd like to support us creators, you can help us out, and you can help me out. You can support me over on Patreon, where you'll have monthly donations, or if you want to support me with just a one-time donation, I have a Ko-fi for that. Ko-fi? Coffee? Whatever it is. I also do commissions over there, and if you want to get some bang for your buck, you can hire me on Fiverr. Go check it out. We'll chat over there. We'll figure out your order. I'm really easy to work with, so consider giving me a try. Thank you so much, and back to your regularly scheduled dragon book.
Alright, welcome back for some more of this. I'm wearing my cozy robe. New to you, cozy robe. This from me, we got at a rummage sale. It's very soft, very plush. And it's allowing me to imagine that I don't have to go to work later, that I can just lounge around. If you hear my computer chugging away, it's rendering a video for me, but we are here to film today. Chapter 5 awaits us. Knowing I am in direct disagreement with the General Malgren's orders, I am officially objecting to the plan set forth in today's briefing. It is not this general's opinion that the children of the rebellion's leader should be forced to witness their parents' executions. No child should have to watch their parent put to death. From the Tirish Rebellion, an official brief for King Tari by General Lilith Sorringale. Ooh, Sorringale, so related to our main character. That's giving a little bit like Hunger Games vibes. Like, are we trying to, like, evoke that feeling a little bit of, like, oh, children being forced to participate in or do things that children shouldn't have to do? Because our main characters are whole adults, so we gotta still get that, like, horror of children being subjected to things in there somewhere. She's talking about her teacher, and it says, the flame section patch on her shoulder matching her short hair perfectly. I'm going to assume they're both red, but honestly, I don't know for sure. Like, have the patches been described well enough for me to know why they match her short hair? Also, if you hear talking in the background, that's Adam. He is working in his office directly above me, but he has his door open today for airflow, so that's his voice you hear. I'm curious if the main character, having almost been a scribe, is actually going to be like one of her strengths. She used it to info dump on us when she was walking across that like narrow part of the wall. And now in class, she recognizes one of her old professors from when she was going to be a scribe, and he looks sad at her. Okay, we are starting to get some details. Like, if you must have an info dump, a classroom setting is a better place to put it. You're still going to want to avoid a lot of info dumping, even if it is in a classroom, but this is a slightly better place to put it. And we are finding out that there's more coming from the griffins. It's an interesting choice to have griffins be like the enemy of dragons. I wonder how this author decided on that, like landed on that as like the opposition. And there's the enemy of some kind who's gone through some of their wards, and griffins can kind of do magic, but not the same magic as the dragons. I'm assuming there are griffin riders and the bad people ride the griffins. It sounds like Nevers, which is the land that our main character lives in, is very resource rich, and so people outside of it are not satisfied with trade agreements and want to come and take their resources. We'll find out if it ever gets any more complex than that, whether that's ever interrogated. Like, are they resource hoarding? Are the other nations like starving and have no choice but to come and try to steal the resources? Like, I'm interested if we're ever gonna find out more. What do you guys think? Also, kind of going along with that potential hoarding of resources, it seems like the people here are the only people who ride dragons as well. Like, outsiders ride griffins, and the griffins just aren't as good as dragons. And so, like, what is the relationship between Nevers and the dragons? How did it form? Why do the dragons only pick people from here? Are the dragons part of the resource hoarding problem? Like, are the dragons, you know, being dragons and liking to hoard things, one of the reasons that Nevers is not really maybe sharing as much as they should be? And do they have to keep resource hoarding? Potentially, I don't know if they are, but do they have to keep resource hoarding to keep their dragons happy, so the dragons will keep bonding with them, so they can keep going in this cycle of having to keep the dragons happy, so that the dragons will help them defend the resources that they might be hoarding from other people? I don't know. It's interesting ideas. I don't know if any of them are going to come to fruition, though.
Get used to disappointment.
Okay, now we're getting details about classmates that she sounds like she's known for a while now, and we have not heard of until this moment. People are asking questions in class, and she mentions Pryor, the meekest first year in our squad. Luca, the catty first year in our squad. I'll do just about anything to avoid. Since when? Who is this person? What about Jack? The guy who wants to kill you? Like, why are we introducing this character as though you have, like, a history with him of doing anything to avoid him if we haven't seen him until this exact moment? Oh, sorry, Luca is a girl. Forgive me. And also she is doing the, she's fine. We finally have the sort of mean girl type. She flips her long brown hair over her shoulder in a move that is anything but casual. Yeah, she says, I've known her less than a day, but you've already decided that she's a catty first year. You will do anything to avoid. Anything in italics. She uses eyeliner. Luca uses eyeliner. Oh, she is definitely the bad bitch that we want to avoid because she's stereotypically attractive and a little bit catty. Now here's an example of the author telling us something and then giving us the information again when we only needed to get the information once. So our main character was thinking about asking a question about altitude, and while she was thinking about it, she gave us the information that griffins can't handle as high of altitudes as dragons. And then the question gets asked about the altitude, and she then says the same thing again, gives us the same information again, this time in dialogue, that griffins can't handle the same altitude as dragons. I would have gotten rid of the first time that she informs us of this and left in the second time in the dialogue, so you don't need to tell the reader twice this information, especially twice in the same chapter. I don't understand this sequence. I don't understand who's making fun of whom, who's not being serious. But one, Jack, the murderous one, says General Melgren knows the outcome of a battle before it happens, but even he doesn't know when it will happen. Dumbass. How can you know the outcome of a battle but not know when that battle will happen? Is his head just completely full of the outcome of a million battles and he has no idea when any of those battles will happen?
It's so dumb, it's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb.
How was that helpful? I guess that makes it so you're less likely to just win everything because your general, yeah, he can tell how the battle's gonna go, but he doesn't know which one. You have to run through his Rolodex of battles every time you get into one and be like, I think this is this one. I guess, like, how does that make him hard to assassinate then? Because, like, if there's a bunch of assassination attempts against him and he knows how all of them are gonna go, how's he gonna be able to know when the assassination attempt is going to happen? Unless this kid is being sarcastic, but then, I'm not the one who thinks precognition is a thing, he retorts with a sneer. But I thought that precognition was a thing. What
are the rules?
Here we go with this.
What are the rules?
So we need to have the general apparently not able to tell when the battles are going to happen so that the main character can be like, in this particular battle that we are talking about today as part of our lesson, where the wards went down, the dragon riders were already on their way. And they wouldn't have been able to do that. They wouldn't have any way to know unless we could already tell that the wards were starting to go down, which I'm sure is going to be an important clue. But if you're going to have a general with a skill as useless as this one apparently is, why even bother letting them have that skill? Because, like, if a major plot point is going to be how did the Dragon Riders know to get to this place when they did, and you already have set up that your general can tell the outcome of battles before they happen, but then you have to have that not actually be a thing because it needs to be a clue that the Dragon Riders already knew to get there. It's so convoluted. You've set yourself up for the most convoluted, like, scenario you possibly can. Why would you do this?
Is it supposed to be stupid?
It's not stupid. It's advanced.
And then, of course, Xaden has to ask the burning question, why did the Griffins attack there? I mean, presumably it's because that's where the wards broke, but maybe the Griffins broke the ward. I don't know. I don't know how intelligent Griffins are. I had assumed the Griffins were accompanied by humans, but maybe the Griffins were just alone. It sounds like they were just alone, and maybe they're just very intelligent. He's like, why were they attacking that village in particular? It's not in the gem mining district. And everyone's like, yes, that is the key question. And I'm like, yeah, that question feels so obvious that I'm kind of surprised we're patting him on the back for asking it, but okay. But also at the same time, I assumed it was because that was the spot where the ward broke down. But maybe we're all meant to just understand that because the ward broke down, that means the Griffins must have broken it, and so they chose to break it in that spot. You try to understand this world building. Of course, the best friend character is now doing the thing where the best friend is always amazed of the main character. You seriously knew every answer in history and apparently every right question to ask in the battle brief. So now they're in sparring class and the two girls are sitting on the sidelines ogling their male classmates because we gotta be horny. I mean, that's like a rule. The guys have their shirts off and the main character has to ogle them because we don't want to forget that she is a straight woman. I wonder how the author came up with some of these names. Their professor is Professor Emetario. Like Professor Emmett, but add Ario at the end. Also, I think that Rhiannon might be a woman of color. It's kind of unclear, but we keep mentioning her braids specifically, so I think she has a protective hairstyle in her hair. The main character specifically mentioned that the hot girl from the previous class is one of the few women who kept her hair, including the main character who also kept her special girl hair. But now we mention that Rhiannon's braids are twisted into a small bun at the nape of her neck, but she's not being mentioned as one of the few people who kept her hair long. So is it because they are in a non-white hairstyle that it doesn't count as like keeping her hair long? I don't know. Also, we have yet again the black friend here to like hype up and pump up the main character. We'll see if this continues being a trend, if this girl basically exists just to make the very white main character feel good. And if so, we will be giving a minority there to serve the straight, white, able-bodied main character. So They're watching a couple of other people fight, you know, in one of their wrestling matches. Again, very, very reminiscent of Dauntless. One of the people, like, goes for a knife that they're wearing, and the professor's like, oh, no weapons today. We're just doing hand-to-hand. And I'm like, well, then why didn't you tell them to take their blades off before they started the wrestling match? Why did you wait until one of them goes for a knife to tell them, oh, nope, that's not allowed? Is Rhiannon gay as well? Oh my god, we are lining ourselves up for that one bingo square, because she seems to be appreciating the women. Weirdly, a moment of sexism where Dane, who's overseeing it, says pulling your punches does her a disservice. The Cygnus, don't know what that is, on the northeast border aren't going to give her any quarter because she's a woman. Up until now, this is the first time I have ever heard in this book any implication that the society is not equal, that women are not expected to do every single job that the men do, that women are not expected to, you know, be dragon riders and stuff. The only thing is, like, small women, like our main character, might not be expected to be dragon riders, but the same could be said of small men. So, like, why all of a sudden are we getting this sort of idea that maybe ingrained in these people would be the notion that the guys shouldn't hurt the girls? That doesn't make any sense in the society that we have built so far. We've given no indication that there is any gender bias in this society whatsoever. But where would this come from? Where would this notion come from in their upbringing, in their life? Where would it come from? Oh my god, she is gay. Am I going to have to do the bingo square right now? Because Rhiannon is, like, very much appreciating Orally. We cement this friendship even further by Rhiannon just happens to be really bad at, like, the academic side of things, and so she's like, hey Violet, I will help you get better at fighting if you help me with my academics. And there's another character there we don't care about.
Since we're talking about Rhiannon, I wanted to bring up something that I forgot to mention in the first section of this read-along, and that is that Rhiannon has been training her whole life to become a dragon rider, to join the dragon riding quadrant, and so it is weird that she went up to the parapet or whatever without the correct shoes. She still had the slippery shoes, and a white girl had to come along and give her one of her boots so that Rhiannon, who should have known this, can survive the first section before she even gets to see a dragon.
Meanwhile, in another ring, Jack, the actual literal psychopath, has broken someone's neck. And the instructor is just like, what did I say about breaking people's necks, you jerk? Like, this is a world that seems designed to let murderous psychopaths survive and thrive. I really just don't feel like that's actually what you want in your military. Like, it sounds really thrilling in your fiction book, but if you think about it, if you try to make this world make sense, if you try to make this a world that logically came into being, why would you want that? Why would you want one of your own troops who goes around killing his fellow soldiers? What use does that provide you? Yeah, he's not even punished. He's just, the professor is like, what did I tell you about murdering people? And then that's it.
Carl, that kills people!
We don't see him led away. We don't see him reprimanded. He's just like, slap on the wrist. Stop killing. Or maybe don't stop killing. Because according to the rules, that person was also a cadet and he was awake. So you can murder him if you want to. Oh, how come she's not allowed to kill somebody? Oh, now the teacher intervenes. So Rhiannon has a turn and she's kicking the guy she's fighting's ass. And she starts to, like, cut off his airway with her boot on his neck. And the teacher's like, okay, he yields, battle over. And I'm like, where were you when Jack was breaking someone's spine in the next ring over? You were fine with that. That was okay. But Rhiannon doesn't get to kill somebody. You just decide arbitrarily that she has to stop. Again with the pink-haired second year. We are obsessed with this girl and her pink hair. The main character gets to fight the pink-haired girl. This is my ship. I don't care about any of the boys. But I have a sneaky suspicion that this book is way too heterosexual for that, because in our definition of accessible fantasy, that also includes queer characters only getting to be side characters. We don't need any of the main characters to be queer. That makes it not as accessible. Humorous that the girl with pink hair, and apparently one of the only people with dyed hair around here because the main character keeps fucking commenting on it, makes fun of the main character for her hair that like goes silver at the end. Like, why assume that she didn't dye it unless your hair is naturally pink, ma'am? Unfortunately for our main character, of course, the pink-haired girl also happens to be a child of the rebels who Violet, our main character's mother, had killed. And so this girl also hates our main character because we can't just have her fight somebody in a wrestling match. It has to be someone who, like, hates her and wants her dead. That, like, there are not enough stakes in her just simply having a wrestling match. It has to be somebody trying to kill her. Otherwise, the reader will get bored, I guess. She lunges forward and swings wildly. That just gives me the mental image that she's just running at you like this. Like, I thought you all were pretty much professional fighters at this stage. Like, all of these kids, except our main character, have been training their entire lives for this. But she's just flailing. Of course, our main character is very agile, which we all know that somebody that has a disability that affects their joints would totally be. Like, it is possible for someone who is not good at, like, strength and fighting to just be not good at any aspect of it, including agility and dodging blows and stuff like that. Like, she was training to be a scholar. So you don't have to do this whole, well, I might not be strong, but I'm quick. Like, where's my representation for the girlies who aren't strong or quick? Where's my rep for the girlies who are just there for the books and would lose a fight no matter what? But no, we have to counter the fact that she is not strong with how nimble she is. Pink-haired girl's name is Imogen, which is an adorable name. I have a crush on Imogen, just in case you're wondering. Imogen, though, is a big cheater pants because she tries to stab our main character. But as you recall, our main character is wearing the secret dragon scale armor that her sister gave her. Obviously, the only way that this other girl would have a chance of beating our main girl in a fight is by cheating. The teacher seems like he's actually going to have her have consequences if she uses the weapon again, versus the boy who murdered someone in the next ring over who has no consequences whatsoever. So if Imogen murdered our main character with her bare hands, that would be completely fine and acceptable right now. But of course, then Imogen remembers, oh yeah, I'm good at this, and just starts to beat the main character without cheating. Why did she feel like she needed to use the dagger in the first place? She immediately just remembers that she's a good fighter and starts kicking ass. The main character is, however, too badass to actually yield the fight, so she waits until one of her bones breaks, and the teacher is like, okay, that's it. Even though, once again, the teacher did not stop a different student from killing another student, so I don't know why he stops Imogen. But yes, the main character has broken a bone of some kind because she's just too stupid, too determined, to fill in the blank that main characters always are, to yield a fight when she's losing it. Like, how is this? She thinks, like, if I yield now, everyone will think I'm weak. How is it better to just then get your bone snapped and have to have the professor call the fight on your behalf? How is that better? How is that a better outcome? You didn't have a plan to get out of the hold that Imogen had you in. So, like, not yielding, how does that make you more? It's so dumb. But that's enough of this book for today. I will hopefully be reading maybe a chapter a day. It kind of depends on what my schedule is. I don't think I'll be able to do it tomorrow. But I'll try to be keeping up with it as best I can so I can start getting close to being able to get chapters out for you guys. And I will see you again next chapter when we find out what happens after our main character was just very stupid.
Who are you?
No one of consequence.
I must know.
Well, that's okay. I'll just tell you. Tell you the names of my patrons, that is. Patrons like July, Bird Anonymous, Sunny Shy, Nico, Saga, Sarah, Kat, 78 Kilograms of Shade, Veda, Ingrid, Roma, Pantsing Pony,
Haley, Sam, Kira, Kohikaro, Mooney, Maria, Kirsten, Bear, Jojo Bookish, Robin, Ursula, Caitlin, KJ, Lafone, Amanda, Celia, Alyssa, Rita, Deborah, Afra, Melissa, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Merween, Kit, Hidden Glade, Light Julie, The Unraveled Legion, Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Shelby, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Sarah H. I'm so glad that these patrons have decided to reveal their identity by helping me out over on Patreon.
And then there's Dauntless. They're our protectors, our soldiers, our police. I always thought they were amazing. Brave, fearless, and free.